All right, welcome to another Friday night evening of Keto Rocks Radio. I'm Jim Hobbs, and to my left or right is my carnivore co-host, Brian Damage Forsythe of the band Kix and Rhino Bucket. And before we get started here, I just want to say congratulations, Brian. I see that Kix is headlining the M3 Festival on Sunday night.
Yeah. Well, for some reason, they decided not to have the Friday night. Well, I think the reason why is because the cruise this year is backed up right against it. Like we basically come back from the cruise and go to M3. So I don't think there was most of the people on the cruise are like the M3 people. So they decided not to have the Friday this year.
So you yourself, your schedule has you literally going to Europe, coming back, going on a cruise, and then M3. That's going to be quite the schedule, right?
Well, there's a little time in between those.
Okay.
Yeah, all our makeup dates and stuff are in February. When actually the M3 is not till April, right?
Yeah, I just saw you posted it, so I just opened it up and I saw there's a great lineup.
Oh, May. That's right, it's May.
Is it May? Yeah, you're good. You're all good. Okay. No, not trying to stress you out. Just thought that was like boom, boom, boom. But
normally the cruise is in February, but they moved it to April this year.
So all's good. I see your crock pot in the behind us there. What do you got? Some bone broth going on? What do you got?
Yeah, I had to make room for the meat that Steve sent me in my freezer, so I had to pull out this big pack of oxtail, and so I thought, so I threw it up here in the refrigerator, and it thawed. So I was like, well, I got to make some bone broth. So
perfect. We actually did a ham on Monday, and we then cooked down the ham bones and get all the meat off of it, the broth, and as soon as we get done recording here, I'm going to go have really smells great right now. Ham broth soup. It just smells awesome. So
speaking of smell, yeah, I got up this morning and the bone broth, it just fills the house. And I got out of the bed and Shannon's like, is that you? I go, what are you? And then I realized she was smelling bone broth. I go, no, I don't smell like that. But
I love that smell, though. I mean, I love that.
But if you don't know it's coming from the
yeah. They think Shannon thinks you ate so much meat you're beginning to smell like meat. I mean,
yeah.
So yeah, but bone broth, I love that smell. I love just in the morning when that's been just cooking. You cook yours what for 24 hours?
I usually do like a day and a half.
Yeah, we used to do it for 72 hours, but then the pressure cooker allows us to do it at like I think 6 hours or 8 hours, so it equates to that same process. But gosh, when it starts to permeate the house, that smell, like when it first comes out, I just want to take a cup I do. Well, I don't try. I do take a coffee mug and just drink it like coffee. I just love that flavor.
Oh yeah, that's the way I do it. I just dump those little jars into a coffee mug.
Yeah, it's perfect. Well, we are 2 weeks away from Christmas for those of you who are late shoppers. So I think when this show airs, we'll literally be 8 days away from Christmas. Have you done your normal or your Christmas baking yet, Brian?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Sure. Go show.
I've got these are all and this the whole sorry, my fridge is kind of getting full. I had this is funny. I had this pot. I was gonna get rid of it because it's old. And I'm like, I'm terrible about throwing stuff away. So I just used it to put cookies in.
There you go. Snickerdoodles or peanut butter cookies?
No, those are cowboy cookies. So these are, oh man, I got all kinds.
Well, you've been busy.
Yeah, I've got containers. So I got to divide them all up between my family and Shannon's family. Here's some extra that we fit some oatmeal cookies. So and the cool thing is I have not touched it because we did that. What was it? The no carb November,
Right.
and I think I was talking about that last time. How sorry, I get distracted with my fridge.
So you're fine.
The last time about how it made it easy to just not even think about stuff. And then right at the end of the November, I remember watching like a podcast or something with Dr. Chafee, and he said something about, I can't remember how he titled it. Maybe Carnivore December or something like that, or I forget. But so I heard that, but then I never saw anything about it later. I never saw any hashtags, but I decided to continue my no carb thing through December.
There you go.
So I'm making those cookies and I got stuffed dough on me and on my fingers. And normally I'll just lick it off or something. And I didn't. I just went over to the sink and washed it off. And I did not touch any of those, even though they look so good, some of them.
Yeah, I was actually, I was having a discussion with a friend at Panera, and I was right where our table was. It was right next door to the cookies they had there that were displaying. I mean, and they were icing and they were, Christmas kind of oriented cookies. And I was just telling, we were having a discussion, and I was like, why do so many people let other people's opinions or statements bother them so much? Why do they give them so much power? I said, when the reality of it is, you should be able to observe anything and then do what you want to do. Nothing should really cause you to want to take action against somebody. Like, for example, I was like, those cookies right there, all those cookies and all that bread. I said, you could go order a plate full of them right now. I'm not going to touch any of them. I have no desire to touch any of them because of the inner knowledge that I have of what that would do to my body. And I said, so, once like you said this last week, I think, Brian, like once you understand your why, like why you're doing something, that's so much more powerful than your addiction. And I think we kind of overlook that sometimes. People don't realize that, take some time to get away and really understand why you're doing something or not doing something. And I know people, say all the time, I haven't got over my addiction, but don't kind of focus on the addiction. And you're probably better diverse in this than I am, but focus on why. What do you want to get accomplished, and focus on why you want to do this.
Right. Yeah. Well, especially when it comes to something like food. Well, anything. I mean, yeah, it does apply all the way around, but especially with food, because I mean, someone can say, yeah, that's not good for you. But if you don't know why, if you don't know why it's not good for you, that's the information that it's just not good for you is not enough information to keep you from eventually going back to it,
Right. I mean, it's like the people who go see a physician and are have to give themselves an insulin shot every day. When the reality of it is, you don't need to go get that insulin shot. In most cases, I'm not saying all cases, I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving you medical advice. I'm just saying I've read plenty of stories, including my own life, where when I no longer partake in sugar or any white flour, any carbohydrates that's going to convert to sugar, you're not a diabetic. Those key factors that are causing you to be a diabetic are able to be reversible. And that's my why. Like, look, I'd love to eat a cookie. I mean, I look at the cookies and I can remember when I used to devour those one after another. I mean, Brian breaking out of those brings back so many family memories of my daughter or my mom and even myself and Peggy making all those different types of cookies, and the cowboy cookies, the chocolate chip and the peanut butter. And every time one came out of the oven warm and fresh, I'd have to taste it. And, I taste one, pack one, taste one, pack one.
Well, that was the thing with me. If one like crumbled or broke, I'd eat. Sometimes I thought I was gonna just eat the piece that broke off, but then And then once I started, then it was, every time I'd have to sample it to make sure it was good.
Yeah. And the crazy part of it is you just are, I mean, you're devouring all these treats, and yet you're not getting full, you're getting hungrier. You're like your appetite is growing. And it's like it's that monster in you that just wants more, more, more. It's like it's never going to be enough.
Well, it's like the Lay's potato chip commercial.
You can't have just one.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get to the point where you're so stuffed, and then you're just feeling like, I'm lethargic. I don't feel that good.
Yeah, and then once the insulin spike hits, and you're just like, whoa,
Yeah.
just like, and then your head starts hurting, and yeah.
And then a couple hours later, you see somebody else, or you see a commercial, like that. I watched that video that you posted earlier today or yesterday with Ken Berry in regards to being able to break your addictions to desserts and food, and what big food is out there peddling, and how they're getting you addicted. I mean, because you turn on a TV, like 1 out of every 3 commercials is going to be about food, and it's going to trigger that synopsis in your brain to go, ooh, let me go get some. I think I got some in my cabinet in the kitchen. I'm going to go grab some. And it's not your fault. You've been programmed. Your body's wired to be triggered. So you have to sit there and find a bigger why. Like, for me, spend some time alone. Go, man, do I really want to be losing toes? Do I really want to be going numb? Do I really want to have to be giving myself an insulin shot every time I want to have food? If I want to do the stomach stapling surgery, do I really want to go through that when I actually means that I'm not able to be strong enough? My will and my why is not strong enough for me to be able to say no. Like, I'm truly an addict, and that's not a bad thing. And I say that because we're all addicts at one point with one thing or another, and we have to freely admit that's where we're at, and then go out and educate ourselves, like Brian says all the time. Start to learn how you became an addict, start to learn what triggered you, start to learn those triggers, and just start reverse engineering how you became an addict. And then when you see that, just play that out, as Brian says, play that tape out, and just realize that's how you ended up where you are now. So I don't want to do that, because I'm just going to do a repeat performance if I decide to partake in that sugar. I'm just not going to do it, or that junk food. And it's, it just takes discipline. But I also think that literally spending time with yourself to find that why. Brian, do they do that when you're going through your AA? Do they go through, like, to find out why and kind of untangle that? I've never gone through that. Do they work on that?
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole thing behind the 12 steps and all that stuff. It's the first step is the only one that deals with alcohol and or drugs. But after that, it's all about well, really what it is connecting to a higher power, whatever you may, whatever that concept might be to yourself. Right. Yeah, it's like they don't shove anything down your throat. There's no I just read an article this week too, where I guess there's some documentary or a show on the BBC or something about AA, where they actually go inside an AA meeting. And so I read this article. It was a review on that show, and the person writing it, back when AA was first put together, it was based on the 12, the steps and all that stuff are based on other things like that came before that. And but it's not a religious program or anything like that. And this person sort of made it sound like it is. And it's like, no, it's not. It's not based on religion, because if it were, I wouldn't be here. Because a lot of people have a problem with that stuff. And but if you are religious, you can use that, to your advantage. So anyway, what I'm trying to say, it's a long story short. It's about you take the drug, the alcohol is when you're in your addiction, that's your higher power, and your medication for all the things that are going on with you. So when you take that away, you no longer have your medication or your higher power. So you have to replace it with something, or or you're doomed. So that's really what that's about, is filling that hole with like spirituality or whatever, finding that connection. And that's what the beauty of it was, like, especially for me. It's like it really opens your eyes, and not only to yourself but everything around you, and you just become aware of like the beautiful things in the world, instead of that doom and gloom that you were experiencing prior to that.
Right. Yeah, as you were saying that, I was just thinking addiction, it really is a combination of big food and big pharma. I mean, that literally becomes your God, or I mean, they're playing God in your life. They're literally telling you, you gotta go to them in order for you to be well. You have to come
Mhm.
to us in order to be well. You need to take this cookie, or take this wafer, or take whatever they're peddling to you, and then you got to go to the white coats so they can prescribe you the other your savior, which is in this case big pharma, your pill that's going to sit there and give you life.
Yeah, and we've been so programmed to, like the quick fix, because nobody wants to do anything that takes any effort. So, and that's the problem, because uh you know somebody can be diabetic and be just miserable, and having to deal with all that stuff like a type 2 diabetic has to deal with, including just getting worse and worse and worse as you go. And they can be it's the same with the drugs and alcohol. You can be given a choice. You either change your lifestyle, the way you're eating. You can actually take that away and reverse it, and or you take this insulin for the rest of your life and get worse, and the insulin and this little pill, and they or actually it ends up being a plethora of pills, but the person will choose the pills because that's easier. And same with they say that in AA. It's like uh here's this simple program, or what was it? Oh man, I just had it on when I was starting to tell this. You can either have a life of what was it? That a life that, well, they refer to it as like institutions. It's like institutions, insanity, or death. All the things that come with the use of the drugs and the alcohol, or you could do this simple program, and it's like, in an actual like addict alcoholic, well, at that turning point, we'll have to decide between those two. And it's like any sane person, it's like a no-brainer.
Right.
But when you're in that addiction, you just can't. The worst one makes more sense.
Yeah. I can go back and look at my life, and of course, when you're in the addiction itself, or whatever that may be, whether it's food, alcohol, drugs, whatever that is, um, the addiction is really speaking for you. And I think if I hear you correctly in explaining how um, AA calls higher power, really higher power is contained in you. So whatever is inside of you becomes your higher power. I think what Brian is saying, and probably what AA teaches, is the fact that you have to realize you've always had the power. you are the higher power. And when you give that away, whether it's to alcohol, drugs, big food, big pharma, you're giving that power away when you have the power to say no. Like no one's force feeding it down your throat. But when I mean, I'm speaking as a personal experience. When I overindulged in adult beverages in my teens and 20s, and sometimes 30s, I would look in the mirror the next morning feeling like crap and just go, and I could see the impact it was having on my body. And I would just go, this doesn't make sense. Why do I do this? I mean, I look in the mirror and say, why do I do this? And then I would take, a week off or a couple of days off. And then the pain goes away. I guess it's like women with childbirth, it doesn't hurt anymore. So I want to go do it again. And
you forget.
yeah, you forget about how painful it was. But until you get to that place where you realize, how many times am I going to do this? How many times am I going to keep beating my head against the wall and then get mad because I got a black eye? It makes no sense, and that's how I begin to look at everything, just not what we're talking about here, but almost in everything in life. I realize that I have the ability to take back that power myself. I can observe and not judge anybody what they're doing, because I know when someone spoke to me about, when you're at a bar and you're drinking and one of your friends or even your spouse may say, hey, don't you think you've had enough? Your ego says, no, I'll stop when I want to stop. It's just crazy how you respond to that. But then deep down, there's this little teeny whisper that says, hey, I think they're probably right. You're probably right. Why are you can't get any drunker than you are now. Why are you keep drinking? Why are you just spending $10? Why are you just keep burning $10 up? So
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't want to cut you off.
No, you're good. I'm done. I'm finishing. Go ahead, Brian.
You're just my own take on the whole I don't believe the higher power thing is myself, because myself is what got me in that mess to begin with. So for me, it's the connecting to the higher power thing. It's like trusting that higher power. That's where it comes in for me. Because whenever we'll say like the drugs, the food, even credit cards,
right,
those are me using those because I don't trust the actual universe, that the universe is going to provide for me.
right.
So that's where I come from. So it's more like sort of, for me, it's got nothing to do with willpower, because I have none.
I know, but let me clarify. When I say higher power within yourself, what I'm saying is you're not going to have to turn to an actual external, I guess, an external product, service, or being. What I'm saying is, like, your imagination did come from you. It came from some other higher power, whether you want to call that God.
Yeah, you're just the receiver of a transmitter. Yeah.
You're just a radio. And so that's what I'm saying. So when you stop believing that you have to go over here to listen to that, and you're talking about seeing the world differently, when it's like a tuning fork. So when you start to believe that everything is for your good, and that only thing you can do is mess it up unless you just roll with it.
Right. There you go.
Right. So a tuning fork, and I've been really meditating a lot on this. I won't go into that tonight, but it's just 8 hours of meditation through night, and I just love it. And one of the things that's really cool about that is that when you see positivity, when you are positive, when you are giving into whatever you want to call that higher power, and you attract what you're open to. And then when you start to see everything's bad, like I know people, and it's very easy. You could definitely point out everything's bad. I'm sure you could pick up the paper in Nashville and somebody died yesterday in the obituaries. You could focus on what's happened in Ukraine. You could focus on all the negative, and then all you're doing is you're just decreasing your energy and you're just focusing on the negative. It's like saying, let's just say a red car is considered negativity, and all of a sudden all you're seeing on the road is a red car. Instead of going, man, blue cars are positive. Blue car brings me energy. It builds me up. It makes me feel like I'm confident. And all of a sudden you start seeing blue cars, and like a tuning fork. A tuning fork is going to, if you have and I'm not a musician and I'm not even trying to be, but it's my understanding that you have a tuning fork at whatever tune that is, and then you have another one just like it, and you hit that one and it's vibrating, it's going to cause the other one to vibrate. So your frequency that you give off does impact and attract those around you who are vibrating at the same frequency. So in a very concise way, when you are vibrating for openness and positivity and kindness and love, that's what you're going to attract, and that's what's going to be brought to you, because that's what you're open to. But it works whichever way you want to go. It's your choice, and you're going to bring whatever you want to see in the world, the negativity, the bad, or you're going to see the good. So the main thing is, when I say higher power, I'm saying you have the ability. It doesn't matter what Jim says, as long as Brian knows. Doesn't matter what Jim says. Doesn't even matter what I say. It's matter if I submit to whatever that is that's controlling all the pieces of the world, or the universe, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
But so I think we're saying the same thing. But when your people are going through that, and I've been there where I, that I could be told, it doesn't matter how many times someone's telling me not to do something, I'm not going to hear that, because that's not the ears I'm listening with. My ego's listening to that, and it's blocking it out. That voice is screaming out. And it's just deep down, that little whisper, that whatever you want to call that, your higher power, the universe, whatever, that's telling you, hey, just listen a little bit, give in, and it's going to be okay. You don't need to do this. You're going to be okay without that. And then once you actually, like you say, trust that step, and then you realize, going, hey, I went to that party, all I drank was water and iced tea, and I had a pretty good time. I'm not feeling sick. I can drive home without worrying about getting pulled over. And then that you start to build on that positivity. So all of a sudden you feel like that's good. And so the same thing happens when in the food addictions, you start to realize, what, I'm just going to have that piece of meat. I'm not going to, or that hamburger. I'm not going to have the bun today with that hamburger. And then it may feel foreign to you. It may feel wrong, and it probably will, because I know it did to me. But then after you take that bite, and I'm like, wait a minute, this has got more flavor to it. I'm actually tasting the flavors, and you start to realize, you start to experience what you've always said that you love, but you realize that the condiments and the bun was really distracting or taken away from the true flavor of what really nourishes your body, the meat. And so that was my experience. And then once I did that, I go, well, that's not so hard. And then, you just grow into other things. So just as in life, you'll start to realize that what you thought you needed was a lie, and you didn't really need that. It just became a crutch. It became a habit.
Yeah, just a habit. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've experienced that in so many different ways over the course of my life. I mean, even something so simple as like a cup of coffee, you get used to putting the cream and the sugar. And then when you have to have the coffee without it, you're like bummed, because you feel like you're missing something. And it's like, oh, this is, it's not the same. And I remember early on, this was way back. I mean, because I didn't start drinking coffee till like in my 20s or something. But I remember at one point I decided to learn to drink it just black, because there were certain instances, like say when we were on the road or something, when I wanted to get a cup of coffee and there wasn't any cream or sugar, and I would be bummed.
Right.
And so I thought, And I did this experiment. I said, I'm going to learn to like it just black. That way I won't be disappointed if I can't get cream or sugar. And that was actually an eye-opening experience, because then I realized I didn't need the cream and sugar. It was weird. So then, when I give up sugar later on, it wasn't a big deal. I didn't have to replace it with the, sweetener or something. And I learned to appreciate the coffee for the coffee instead of the stuff that you put in it. Because most of the people that put stuff in coffee don't really like the coffee.
Right. Well, but it also, like, I totally agree with everything you're saying. That's been my experiences as well. It's like you just get into a habit. Like if you just get in a habit of eating lunch every day at 11:30 to 12, or watching a program every single day, it just becomes a habit. And then if something throws that schedule off, you're like, oh my gosh, you just feel like you feel like out of kilter, and your days is not going right. The same thing goes with, like you're saying about the coffee. I know, I'd never thought in the wildest dreams that I'd be able to eat a hamburger without fries. I mean, that's like
or for me, it's like fries without ketchup.
Yeah.
It's like, how can you have fries with no ketchup? That's like a piece of carrot cake without the frosting.
Right, without the icing. But all those things, you begin to realize that it really is it's just a habit that you have a loop in your head. And if that loop breaks, you feel like, oh my gosh, I gotta go do this. And I remember willing to go. How many times you've been willing to get in the car and drive in the middle of the night to go get something that your body's telling you need, when the reality of it is you don't really need it. It could be cream. It could be a number of things, but it's just that once you break free from that, like for example, this goes way back, but I used to be addicted to chewing tobacco. I always had a cup in my car, and I don't mean to gross anybody out, a spit cup, a spittoon. I'll be polite. But we go to the movies. I remember my friends, we go see movies at the theater, and I'm like, this is the way I thought. If I did chewing tobacco on an empty stomach, did feel so great. So I had to get myself stuffed first. So it's like having a cigarette after you've eaten. So same thing with chewing tobacco. Like I had to go, okay, I'm going to go get a big half gallon of butter popcorn and a 64-ounce large soda, and then I'm going to have my chew of Red Man or Kodiak or Skull or whatever it is. And then I'm like, but the whole process of just going through, I was like poisoning my body at every step of the way. Why? It's not, I was fooling myself. I was buying into the lie that every one of those substances, whether it's the popcorn, the carbonated Coca-Cola, or the tobacco, every one of those were speaking to me going, eat me, drink me, put me in between your cheek and gum. It's just, it's like, it's crazy. But once you break that habit, yeah, it's a little strange, but then you start to realize, man, there's so much more that I was missing out on, because when you're just focused on doing those three things, there's so much I'm missing out on.
Yeah. In fact, I think we touched on that last week. It's like where, you think when you're in that process that you're free because you can do whatever you want. But then but the reality is, once you take all that stuff out of your life and it's not a habit anymore, that's where the freedom is.
Yeah.
And that is a true feeling of freedom when you get to that point where you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I look around and I think about, I'm 59 years old, or soon to be 59 years old. I look at my life and I think about how much money I've made over my life, and how much stuff that I've bought that I no longer have around me. So obviously, when I'm talking about material stuff that I have bought that's no longer I have possession of, if I'm being honest, it means I never really needed that stuff in the first place. I gotta, so when you start to like live a very simple life and realize, why did I do that? because you were buying into that lie that you needed that in order to feel okay, you know. And it's one of the things that, you know, when you're young, you just don't know. You go off of those what's the word I'm looking for? Those impulses. You go off of those impulses. Like you're like, oh, you know, I just made $1,000. You're at the store. I'm going to buy that stereo. You know, you may already have one, but you're going to buy another one. Or, you know, you're gonna trade your car in because you're tired of that one, or you always wanted this one. And I remember, you know, buying my Monte Carlo SS back in 1987. I thought, oh my gosh, I finally did it. But I was paying half of my check was going to that Monte Carlo. The other half was going to pay for the insurance for the Monte Carlo. And, you know, T-Tops SS, but that was the vehicle I always wanted. And the reality of it is, it doesn't change anything. All it is I remember I had a coach that always told me, only thing a car is to get you from point A to point B. And he has done really well in his life because he's kept it very simple from that standpoint and hasn't been that much of a material person. And so, you know, it really does as you get older and you start to realize what's really important, you start to realize just how everything is intertwined, whether it's the food, the addictions, consumerism, the material stuff. And the more you simplify it, it's almost the happier you are, and the more that you get a chance to enjoy. Like, you know, Peggy and I talk all the time. Like, we live in I think 1,100 square foot cottage. We moved from a 3,800 square foot 4-level house in our farm. And we had to get rid of a lot of stuff. We downsized, and we're like, man, life is so much simpler. Like the last 9 years in the cottage is like, we just love it. It's so simple. It's like we don't have to worry about cleaning 4 levels or be responsible for maintaining 4 levels. It's like, hey, we clean up, we're done in 30 minutes, and everything we need we have. And, you know, when we go out and look at stuff, we're just like, nah, we don't need that. Where are we going to put it? And I mean, I don't say we stop buying everything, but the reality of it is, it's the same thing with a hamburger. Once you throw away the bread and the condiments, you start to really appreciate what's really important. So yeah. So that's a wow. I just looked up. I've been on a diatribe for 45 minutes. I apologize, everybody. So, Brian, now the difficult question. Is your Christmas shopping complete?
It's never really ever. I know Christmas is a tough one for me. Oh, yeah. I mean, that's why I do the cookie thing, because that way I have something.
Well,
I'm terrible, but you know, I've gotten a couple things here and there, but I'm still, you know, there's still the older I get, the harder it is.
well, let me ask you a question, because Peggy and I talk about this all the time, and I agree with that. She said the same thing, like, why is it so hard? Because, you know, I understand the kid thing. If you got kids, grandkids, yeah, I understand
Yeah.
being able to make it about them. But everybody else, if I wanted to get it, I would go get it. You know, most everybody else, if they really wanted something, would go get it. Now, I think it's nice to be able to convey your you know, your love or appreciation of a person being in your life by acknowledging them. But, you know, I'm just speaking out loud. Should be acknowledging them every day of the year anyway. It's you know, we went to go see the trial of Ebenezer Scrooge last Saturday. Peggy and I did, and I don't think I've ever seen that play or that movie. And I was like, wow, what a great movie. Because, you know, while you look on the surface that Ebenezer was a Scrooge, the reality of it is his message was, you guys do it for one day. I want to do it for every day of the year. And why do you just limit it to one day a year and then take the other 364 days off? Was his point in the play that we saw. And that's how I kind of feel about Christmas. It's like, you know, if you want to do something for someone out of your heart, you just do it. You don't wait to buy it, wrap it up, put it in the closet, and save it for the one day of the year to give it to somebody, because, you know, tomorrow's not promised. So, you know, you don't want to have a closet full of gifts that you were never able to give it to the person that you wanted to gift them to.
True.
So that
Well, that and the fact that it's, you know, it's become so commercialized, you know, the whole every holiday, it's all about buying stuff. And it shouldn't be.
no,
That shouldn't be the purpose of it, you know.
no, I totally agree. So I think baking cookies and shipping them off. I mean, that's, you know, it's like Peggy's love language is baking and cooking. And
Even though I feel like a hypocrite now
well,
doing that.
that's good. Be the
I
peddler,
know.
but not the consumer. It's, you know, but listen, but those people don't have to eat them. So just know that you may be peddling it, but they don't have to devour them. So
Yeah, yeah.
don't beat yourself up too bad. But the one thing you could be preparing for, oh, by the way, I'm just going to say shout out to Steve for giving us gifts of meat.
Oh man, I know.
I got a second box. Man, my Tommy Hawks was two of them. Wow.
Yeah, I got the same thing. I know. I had to take everything out of the boxes that were in those containers, and I had to take everything out so I could just put individual things, just shove them in little cubby holes, because my freezers, both of them are just packed.
Well, I can't. I mean, just how they're shipped. I mean, that cooler they ship them in, and then the boxes of the dry ice or whatever that the dry ice, but the containers. It's like, wow. My old self I would have kept those coolers. You know, I would have kept them and used them for something. But I like, oh, throw them in the trash. I did save the ice though, so I can use it for when we go boating during the summer for our coolers, because that was
Well, actually, those I used to save all those ice things too, but now I've got like a whole shelf in my downstairs freezer with those things, and it's like, how many of those things do I need? So those the ones that came with that meat, they're actually. Did you read what it said on there?
no.
They're recyclable, but you can use them as fertilizer. So I
Really?
went out, spread it in my little rose bushes. You know, I cut those packs open and put them out there.
So they're
So
environmentally safe and they're biodegradable and they're good for the environment. Wow, I did not read. I'll go read them. I saved them all.
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I didn't have to just toss them in the trash.
Well, that's good. Did you throw your styrofoam cooler away, or did you keep that too?
I've I've got a bunch of those too stashed. So I threw one away, but I didn't have enough room in my trash can to put both of them in there. So
Well, anyway, well, Steve, thank you very much. That was a very thoughtful gift, and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
we definitely will be. I'll let Brian. I'm not going to steal his tagline, because I want to say that there'll be plenty to eat this year. But Brian, what would you say somebody who's made it this far along in the show? You showed them cookies, but what do you consume during this time of year?
I would say eat your meat.
And I would say amen to that. Well, listen, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us for another Friday night. Next Friday night, we'll be coming back at you on Christmas Eve. So it will be our Christmas Eve show. So you guys, in the meantime, stay safe, stay well, stay kind, and stay out of that hospital. We'll see you next Friday, everybody.
See ya.